When I broke free, I broke free. Um, I broke free from religion. I broke free from marriage. I broke free from tradition. I broke free from everything to discover me. As I stated, I always have loved the Lord and still do. But I just knew something wasn't right. Something wasn't right. There's no way you can love God, the creator of this universe, the omnipotent one, serve him with all your heart, and you go through so much in relationships. And I'm not just talking about marital relationships. I'm talking about relationships in the church. I'm talking about relationships with the pastor. I'm talking about relationships where they don't cultivate you, they don't see you, they want to use you, they love you for your money, betrayal, gossip. Then even at home, you got to submit, you got to do all this, you got to do all that. It's never about you. It's always about what you can do for someone else that has nothing to do with God, but that makes you think you are serving God. That they want to put that this is godly. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, nah, something's wrong. Because if I'm supposed to have this much trouble in relationships, and he's a God of relationships, and we all supposed to love him, and we all supposed to serve him, then what's missing? So I had to get free because that wasn't working. I remember when I told the fact that I was going to leave the marriage. And I literally was seeking out for help, seriously. I was seeking out for help because I didn't want to leave if I didn't have to, but if I could go to my pastor or go to someone who can hear me, then maybe it would be an opportunity. And so I did it. I tried it. I went to the pastor at that point in time, and I was like, this is what's going on. That's what's going on, And it seemed like every time you go to someone, it's always turned back on you, turned back on me. But I'm the one doing everything. I'm the one making the sacrifices. I'm the one who's serving. I'm the one who's giving. But I think that I was basically... people had a distaste for me because they couldn't control me. You ain't nobody gonna control me. You know what I mean? And I was bucking up against that, didn't realize that I was bucking up against it because I've always been said I was feisty. So the more I'm feisty and the more you can't control me, the more they try to control you. But I went to the pastor at that time, and I was with your father, and I was like, this is what's going on, that's what's going on, but help. You know what I'm saying? I mean, hey, I'm here, I'll avail myself, help. And so the way that he would speak to me at home, I never thought that he would speak to me that way in front of the pastor, which made me feel safe. So he went around on the side of the desk where he was, and he began, the man I was married to at that time, your father, began to speak derogatively to me and degrading like it was privately. And I'm like, okay, cool. Somebody can hear, somebody can see. Because emotionally, I was being beat up. Emotionally, I was being attacked. I was being abused. And at one point, I thought, okay, maybe if he physically hit me, the pastor, the people in the church, all of them can see. You know what I'm saying? But because it wasn't physical, it was all internal. So when he began to display the same behavior, which I thought that he probably wouldn't ever, the pastor began to couple up with him. And so at that point, I think everybody who knew me, in a sense, knew that I had a call on my life. I mean, prophecies was coming, and God called you to preach, and you got an anointing on your life, and all these things. And I didn't gloat in it, but I just got tired of hearing it. But anyway, the pastor at that time, he said, if you leave this marriage, your ministry would be cursed. And I hadn't even started in ministry at that point in time. And I said, what? He said, your ministry will be cursed. And I stepped back and I told your daddy, I said, you kiss my tail? I ain't use that word though. And I told the pastor, I said, you kiss my tail. I ain't use that word either. And I said, I'm done with all of it. And I left everything.
I think if the man is not sure of himself or who he really is, they can't stay in the same room with her. They will feel small and demised, unsecure, intimidated. And I believe that if they just stay around her long enough, they can learn from her and she can learn from them if they learn to open up. But by her walking in authority that she does, in the natural and in the spirit, they automatically shuts up when she walks in the room. And not saying their mouth, they close up their spirit, they close up everything. And their mindset, their attitude changes. Who this woman thinks she is. You know, I'm the man, or I'm the one that's been in control. And I'm gonna tell you this, I believe when that man leaves her presence and go home to their wife or their woman or get around another woman that don't have that power, they control that woman on purpose to feel their manhood come back. And I know what I'm talking about because I'm a man.
When I make up my mind, I'm the type of person, you know, I try so hard to give people benefit of the doubt. The key word was try. Because I know me. I know that when I am fortified in my mind, can't nobody change it. So I will do all that I know to do. I will take a lot, and I will stand through a lot because I know when I'm done, I'm done. And at that point, I was done. I left, and I said, God, if you are real, and you love me the way that I know that you love me, and if you love me, then you're going to have to show me. You're going to have to show me. I said, but if I'm wrong, then hey, give me some gasoline draws because on the hell I'm going. And I left everything, and I call it my wilderness. You know, I went out there and just left the church, left everything, left the marriage, and I began to find me. What did Davetta like? Who is Davetta? Because I had been serving the Lord and since I had that encounter since 17, and I've been in church all my life and been doing what my mother want me to do and doing what everybody else want me to do. But I didn't know who I was. And at this point, I was like 37, 38. Who in the hell are you?
I always tell her she had went through the wilderness. Now she's in her paradise right now. And I remember all the years through the wilderness because I was right there with her. But she hung in there and she's learned from all those experiences. And now she's reaping all the benefits.
And I began to just do what I wanted. Do what I wanted, be with who I wanted, whatever man I wanted, wherever I wanted to go. Went on vacations, went on trips, still had my agency, had my money, had my cars, had my this, do whatever. And I was like, okay, God, if I'm wrong, because that went all against the religious grain. But it was in those times, it was 7 years, I call it wilderness, God began to speak to me like never before. I began to hear his voice like never before, in the clubs, in the bed, being with men. He would say, this is what I called you to do. And I'm like, it was contradicting. It was like, you ain't supposed to show up here. You're supposed to show up at church. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to show up by this man in the bed with me. But he was proving himself that religion doesn't put a barrier on our relationship. So he taught me about a relationship. A relationship goes beyond. Relationship doesn't hold you hostage. Relationship meets you where you are.
I had a Cadillac STS, and we was in the STS, and we were going someplace. And I had on a tape at that time. It was a cassette tape because we didn't have CDs and all that kind of stuff. And I had that tape on, and I had Clay Evans in the song, I Got a Testimony. And it came on, and she said, Bob, pull over, pull over. I said, pull over for what? She said, pull over. I said, Davetta, I'm not pulling over. Nigga, pull over. So I pulled over. And when I pulled over and put the car in park, she just jumped out and started praising God and danced. You know what I mean? And she said the Spirit just fell upon me. And I had to do what I needed to do at that time. I'm sitting in the car. Now, I'm trying to figure out what the hell is going on. You know what I mean? I'm like, and I can't remember, but I'm almost sure when she was out there dancing, she was speaking in tongues. I'm almost sure, but I can't remember that. I know write that down and watch it. But I do remember. Now she danced now a good time out there till that song was off. And I was just sitting there in the car watching. But she was praising her God. What she was praising God about, I have no idea because she never told me. But she was definitely praising God at that time.
And that's how I developed not only a relationship with Christ, but a relationship with myself. That's when I discovered Davetta as the woman. All what I knew and how I grew up being clean, being organized, being adorned, taking care of yourself, I took more ownership of it. This is really who I am. And I don't have to apologize. I don't have to be apologetic about being feisty. I don't have to be apologetic about being radical. I don't have to be apologetic about me liking dick and Long Island iced teas and clothes and high heel shoes and my hair. First time I put weave in my head, I'm like, oh, breaking through so many barriers. Walked on a nude beach, just being free, discovering me without having all those minds and thoughts and opinions. Do you all know people are free? And religion holds you hostage, but God really showed me how he loves me for who I am, and I am not perfect. And he also taught me if a man can't love you for who you are, not for your perfections, not for how you please them, because I was taught you always please a man, iron their clothes, cook their food, do what they want them to do. Religion substantiated that, how I was learned in my home through my mother. But God broke through all of that. If they can't love you for your imperfections, if they can't love you for who you are, that they don't love you, they love themselves more. And that's a hard pill to swallow when you know that, and yet they say contradicting that I love you, but I always know truth. So those was one of the best years of my life until God really said, okay, enough is enough. And that's when I began to hear, I call you pastor. I call you pastor. And I was like, I don't want to do this, because I ain't finna go back looking like a little homely person. I ain't finna put on no robe. I ain't finna wear no clergy cloth. I ain't finna sweat and be funky. I'm not finna do none of that. And he was like, who told you you had to do all that? He said, I want you to be you. He said, I don't want you to be nobody but who I made you to be, and that's Davetta. And that stirred up a whole lot of conflict right then and there. Because bad enough, I was a woman. And then second of all, I was a free woman. And third of all, I wouldn't let nobody dictate to me and tell me who to be, because God had shown me in 7 years, it was just me and him. Having a relationship and him helping me to understand me, the woman. And I tell people today, if I'm not nothing else, I am woman. I am not pastor. I am not ma. I am not grandma. Those are the positions. Those are the roles that he has given me to fulfill as a responsibility. And I take it on with every fiber of my being. But he made me woman. He didn't make me a pastor. When he put me to sleep, he called me woman. And he has shown me who I am and why the enemy hates me so much. And now I understand why I was having all those conflicts and all those abuses and all those degrading remarks and all those things, because the enemy did not want me set free. Because when I became set free, then he anointed me to set other captives free. So I am Davetta. I love being the woman. I love being who I am. I love who he made me to be. I love my perks. I love my imperfections. I love my idiosyncrasies. I love my strengths. I love my weaknesses. I love the fact that I don't even know how to speak proper English all the time. I love my farts. I love my shits. I love my everything, because it's who I am. And nobody can ever take that away, although they try. I've been trying to be broken for so long instead of trying to be broken, because I promise you, if I'm talking to you and you're a woman watching right here, the enemy hates you because you're a woman. And the devil, even men, always want you to be what they want you to be. But you got to be who God made you to be, and that's woman. And if you're man, be man, but don't try to be both.
My fondest memory of my mother growing up, I just always used to tell my teachers and people that my mom was this jazzy, busy, entrepreneur, working woman. So I always said that she was just I thought she was a workaholic. I thought she really put a lot of her energy into her work, into her drive. And so a lot of my memories in my mind was just seeing her give to the men that she was serving in the DCFS agency, being that boss, you know, B-I-T-C-H. She just was this bold woman. And although those memories weren't her with me and talking to me and nurturing and sitting down with me, I feel like seeing that made me very proud to see such a independent, and not that prideful, but just an independent woman who was confident in who she was. And I was always in awe of seeing my mom walk down the hallways and my peers being like, "Yo, mom is in the building." And it just felt good. It felt good to know that you could have that kind of mom.
I was never afraid of my daughter seeing me free as a woman. Matter of fact, I wanted to be the best role model that they could ever have of what a free woman looked like. Never apologize for yourself. Never apologize for your idiosyncrasies, your shortcomings, your weaknesses, your lust, your failures, your whatever, your joys, your triumphs. If I don't model that, who are they going to get it from? I never want my daughters to learn from any other woman, pastor, leader, friend more than they can learn from myself. Unapologetically, be you.
So, who came in your life to embrace you as this woman, radical, arts?
Yeah, in my own home, having it adorned just the way that I wanted it, and it's just, I just take delight in all that type of stuff. And I was just so free. But then there was a gentleman who came into my life, and that was the first person I didn't put any type of mask on, any type of representatives. And his name was Byron Collins. And he came and visited me and asked me, could he come over? I know he was trying to come up, but, you know, that's all good. I was probably trying to come up too, so it didn't make a difference. But he came and we just hung. And I didn't have no weave in my head. Matter of fact, I had pus in my head. I had just taken stuff out. And I didn't have to put on no representative. I didn't have to fix myself up. Matter of fact, it wasn't that I have to. I wasn't. Because when you're free to be yourself, either somebody's going to accept you for where you are, who you are, and how you look at that moment and that time. And we just began to talk, and he began to put neo support in my head, and we just began to just laugh and just talk. And before you know it, we had just cultivated a relationship. And in August 17th of 2002, we said, I do. And to me, it wasn't a typical marriage, because he was the first person that I shared my vision with. He was the first person that I shared the call that God had on my life. He was the first person that I shared my intimate parts of who God had made me to be and who he told me I was. And he said, I don't want to just marry you, I want to marry your vision. So when we said our vows, it wasn't the typical, will you take this, will you take that? We made our own vows up and how he was going to stand, how he was going to protect, how he had vowed to be there for me in every aspect of ministry. But neither one of us knew what the hell we were doing when it came to ministry. But we both had a heart, and we both had a heart for not only Christ, but we had a heart for one another. Yeah. So I consider that my first marriage. Not because of him, but because I knew who I was. And I knew what I was doing. All the other ones, I was doing it to try to please God and please others. And it didn't work. I had started ministry. I started the emotional healing clinics. God had, when the agency closed, before the agency closed, he said, God spoke to me. He said, I want you to bring, just like you have been doing with these men, I want you to bring healing to the hearts of women. And I was like, I don't want to be bothered with no women. And my life was filled with men. I love men. Men is not complicated. They're easygoing. Women, too much. But he began to tell me, this is what I want you to do. And there's nothing that he would tell me to do that I won't do. I just got to yield to it. Eventually we'll get there. But I also understood myself as a woman, and I understand how we become shattered. I understand how we become resentful and gossiping and betraying one another, because the enemy hates us to stand united and divided. And the only way, he wants us to stay divided and not united, but the only way that we can ever do what we got to do together is that we become healed. And if I was broken at one point, and if I was doing things, and if I was gossiping, and if I had pain, how could I put another woman down? And so I took my clinical skills, as God had admonished me to do, and the revelation of his knowledge, and he said, I want you to marry the two. And I want you to teach my word from a clinical and a biblical and a spiritual perspective that will marry the two to bring healing to the hearts of women.
It was very hard at first because I did not know what healing was. And when I met Pastor Dee, I actually heard her first on a prayer line. And she taught, and I'm like, who is this woman? I had the opportunity to go into her home for an emotional healing clinic. It was a special for the women who were on the prayer line. And I went for one thing just to see how it was. But then I remember her telling me this just distinctly, you need healing. And I didn't know what that meant. I had dealt with physical illnesses, but nothing ever emotional. And so for me, I'm gonna be honest with you, being at the emotional healing clinics, being at Change of Life, it was difficult because I had to break through a lot of pride. And unashamed, unapologetic, did not hold my hand, did not coddle me. She just allowed me to go through my bumps and bruises. She guided me, but I had to go through my own process, and that was difficult. But once I got on that path, I thank God. And I thank God for her, and I thank God for that experience at Change of Life, because it's made me who I am today.
And in 2002, after I said I do to Byron Collins, I went full force. The agency was closed down, went on the radio, just started moving in faith, finding my way. And I felt good because I didn't know all what I was doing, but I had him by my side. I had him there. And I think everybody needs somebody. And he was right there. But, things happened. It was a learning tool because we took on a whole lot. Invited folks into the home and made the home the ministry part when our business was going down. We acquired a business together. It was a lot of moving parts. But the best part about it is that not only did I learn more about myself, but he had to learn more about himself.
Her and Byron turning that house into a transitional living home, which was the home that I grew up in from 12 years old, it really didn't seem like, I didn't notice that it was being transitioned until I really came back home from college. And your pictures on the wall, your decorations, your room was just not there anymore. And I slowly saw it happening, but it just really hit me when it's like you want to come home and live back the way things were before you left for college. So I didn't like it. And I think I have made every woman feel that I did not want their presence in that home, that their presence was unwanted. And it was hard for me to adjust to the ministry and how she was serving women, because I just didn't feel like I fed in with them. I felt like they were invading a personal space. And really, I went through so much in college, and I kind of felt like I was robbed of having a mother at that young 23-year-old age, because I was going through a lot of soul ties. I was going through a lot of my own breaking, and I think sometimes when you want to come home and just mend that with your mother, I feel like I just didn't have that one-on-one individuality to be able to do so. But I still healed.
So relieving him from a lot of the pressure and relieving him from a lot of my life responsibilities which is how we end up divorcing, I think was the best decision. I didn't want to see him in my agony. I didn't want to see him carry my pressure. I didn't want to see him carry no more of the pain that only I could bear because of what God had given me to do. I remember the church the ministry name, shall I say, that we had, or that I had, and he was there with me. It was called Change of Life Ministries. And God would give me things to teach about. And I taught about Dunamis. I taught about Dunamis for a while. Matter of fact, I didn't just teach things to be teaching, and I would teach as he would give it to me, and I would do series, and I would stay on that teaching. And it was just so much rich revelation flowing on Sunday mornings and Saturdays, emotional healing clinic. It was just so much rich revelation, and lives was just changing miraculously. Families was getting healed, and all of our brokenness, we were facing our stuff. But when I taught about Dunamis, God began to give me visions and dreams and speak to me about Dunamis. And I didn't understand it to the magnitude of what I understand it now, but I kept on hearing it. Dunamis Woman Incorporated, Dunamis Woman Magazine. And he would speak to me about Dunamis Woman. And I was like, oh, the more he spoke, the more scared I got. But I knew it was God. I didn't know all what it entailed. I just knew it was the miraculous power of God. I knew that it was a miraculous strength and a miraculous force. And I knew it had to do with our history as a people, particularly black men and women. And so when I began to continue to teach, God would just speak more.
What is dunamis as it relates to our history as a people? Dunamis, of course, is a power. It's a strength power. It's miraculous power. Us as a people, we are from the land of milk and honey. Africa is dunamis. And so when you think about dunamis, you can't help but to think about where we came from. You can't help to think about our ancestors. You can't help to think about the shores in which we came from, the kings and queens, the prophets, the builders. All of that is dunamis. And that's what resides in our DNA. That's the power that God gave us. Now, for us as a people, unfortunately, our ancestors were brought here. And they were enslaved. We have been receiving the residue of that enslavement. But one of the things that dunamis, we can never, whether we've been beaten, whether we've been put in jail, whatever has happened, that power will never leave us. And it's so important for us to remember that and know who we are. And I love being at Dunamis Woman because Pastor Dee does put the historical with the spiritual, which I've never seen anybody else do it. But what she really wants us to do is understand who we are and understand that we have that power that resides in us. And we are the original. We're the originals. And that power that resides in us, it's actually been given to others, and they have allowed to prosper, and we have not. And so with Dunamis, what we're learning here, it's taking back everything that was stolen, taking back everything that was taken, and putting us in our rightful place as God's chosen vessels, as his chosen people.
He wanted me to do this, do that, and he would lead me here, lead me there, lead me there. All of it wasn't pretty, though. None of it was pretty. But I learned more. And that's why I tell people today, dunamis is dangerous. Dunamis is deep. But the one thing that he taught me about dunamis, even through his word, is that Satan has dunamis. And when he began to reveal that to me, that Satan has dunamis, and as a woman, you got dunamis. But Devetta, if you don't know how to walk in anything else, you better learn how to walk in your authority. And we can both have dunamis, but the enemy don't have my authority. So much he's taught me through the word that no preachers never taught me, no pastors ever taught me. God literally had me sit down, no job, no anything, just persevering in ministry, and taught me his word. He said, I'm going to reteach you a lot of things that you were taught. And for 12 years plus, I used to dig into his word, and he'd teach me, and I would teach Change of Life. He'd teach me, I would teach an emotional healing clinic. He would teach me, and I would just teach, and lives would begin to change.
I was introduced to Dunamis Woman on the radio. I had been learning in my youth group at one of my church about dunamis, and it intrigued me because it was, a Greek term, power. And so to see Dunamis Woman again, that was just like, how you see something and you have an imagination and you envision something, but you don't really know how it looks until you see it. That's what it was. It was like dunamis coming to life. when I came in and met her and came up under her leadership, I noticed everybody called her, it was some people I heard call her Pastor Dee, Miss Dee. But I was like, she's like a mother to me. You know, she's like Mama Dee. So I just started calling her Mama Dee. And she was able to bring the word of God to life in my life. Meaning that with specificity. A lot of times when you go to church, you hear a pastor and they'll preach a good word and you'll go home and you don't know how to apply it. But she put a demand on me as a spiritual daughter to really apply everything that I learned to my life, because when I came, I had literally nothing. I didn't know how to apply the word. I just knew the word. I thought.
But it seemed like my life was going out in a hell in a handbasket. But one thing he told me, and it's in Matthew 10 and I believe 39, he said, to lose your life is to gain it. And to gain your life is to lose it. So I had to lose everything. I lost houses, I lost cars, I lost everything that I've ever acquired, I ever achieved, I ever accomplished. And that's when he taught me how to trust him. And he said, I'm building your life, not you, not your entrepreneurship, not your feistiness, not your ability to go get it, not your management of money. He literally brought me a base, and only for him to build me up to abound. And I'm still in the process of abounding. But if it didn't give me nothing else, it gave me a dependency and a trust in him like never before. When everybody walked away, he taught me how to trust him. When I ain't have a dime, he fed me. And because I have always been a self-sufficient go-getter, God had to teach me, Devetta, where I'm taking you, you got to learn how to trust me like never before. So I'm grateful for the years, almost 20 years, that he stripped me. I've experienced not having homes, homeless, but he's provided. He's provided everything I need, but the only thing I had to adhere to, and I still, is the voice of the Lord. Nobody can take away that voice.
I had heard the word dunamis from the Bible, but when she came up with it, I really got a better understanding what a dunamis woman was. And that's where she got it from, out the Bible. But she is definitely a dunamis woman, guaranteed. That's a perfect name for her, a dunamis woman.
As a black woman, I take ownership of that, because every race and every culture understands dunamis but us. I'm not a historical person. I didn't like school. But God sat me down for a period of time when I used to go to this particular church because my brother went there. And it just so happened that they were doing a series on African history. And I learned so much about our enslavement. I learned so much about how we became victimized and how we don't really know who we are. And in my quest to be able to do all what God has called me to do, he's really, really illuminated that history plays a great part in our dunamis power. And the reason why the enemy hates us so much as a black people, because he wanted to destroy something that he could never destroy. We just always continuously have an entitlement mentality and play the victim and want somebody to give us something. And that really, really was shifted my mind, because everything you need and everything you asking God for, while you're looking for him to open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing because you took your little fluky behind tithe check there, he said it ain't coming out of them heavens like you think. It's coming out of your belly. Because dunamis power is on the inside of you. If you want it, produce it. I'm so tired of people, Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans that you have for your life, that which is of good and evil, that which is of a hope and of an expected end. But we don't read the whole thing. When it says in your state of captivity, he says produce. Jeremiah 9:1-11 says, and where you don't have, produce. Where there's no crop, produce. That means he's giving you the power, because he does know the plans for your life. Whatever you need, produce. You got an idea? Produce it. You got a thought? Produce it. You got creativity? Produce it. This right here is being produced. Who's going to give it to you? Because you got the power that's on the inside. And why? Because Christ lives on the inside. He don't live outside. So religion teaches you to look external, and dunamis power teaches you how to look internal. So yeah, I take ownership as one of the most leading black women of dunamis power in the United States of America. But we got to be healed and set free.
What attracted me to Pastor Dee was truth. She spoke truth. It was really apparent that she loved the Lord. There was no question. And I've seen a lot of people who love the Lord, but there was just a realness to her. And no apologies, no excuses, no artifice. And I just was so drawn to that. I hungered for authenticity, and she was that and even more.